Have you seen the BBC comedy clip of the moment a young boy, called Kevin, played by Harry Enfield, becomes a teenager? On the stroke of midnight, his whole personality changes from excited, bubbly and friendly to sullen, churlish and hostile.
Only 30 seconds to go before I'm 13, 29, 28. Yeah, I'm 13!
Happy birthday, Kevin!
Happy birthday to me! Happy birthday to me! Happy birthday, Dick! Goo! Goo!
Kevin?
Are you alright?
Darling, he's losing the power of rational thought.
And the use of his arms.
He's become a teenager.
Kevin!
What?
It's your birthday, Kevin.
Oh, I know!
Happy birthday, Kevin!
Okay, stop going on about it, will you?
There are some moments where our life can change dramatically, and one of those is the moment that we decide that we'll follow Jesus. Over the last few weeks, we've thought about those specific moments for Andrew, Simon, Philip and Nathaniel. Today, as we move into chapter 2, we start to see what this life of following Jesus looks like. Welcome back to our study of John's Gospel. I'm Ian, and this is the Selah Time to Pause podcast from Plexus Salvation Army, an online church in the UK.
I will stop and breathe in your presence. Just breathe. Just breathe.
Scripture from John chapter 2, verses 1 to 11. 3 days later, there was a wedding in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples were guests also. When they started running low on wine at the wedding banquet, Jesus' mother told him, "They're just about out of wine." Jesus said, "Is that any of our business, mother? Yours or mine? This isn't my time. Don't push me." She went ahead anyway, telling the servants, "Whatever he tells you, do it." 6 stoneware water pots were there, used by the Jews for ritual washings. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus ordered the servants, "Fill the pots with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Now fill your pitchers and take them to the host," Jesus said, and so they did. When the host tasted the water that had become wine, he didn't know what had just happened, but the servants, of course, knew. He called out to the bridegroom, "Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now." This act in Cana of Galilee was the first sign Jesus gave, the first glimpse of his glory, and his disciples believed in him.
Before I start getting into any of the potential meaning that lies within this story, I just want to restrict my comments today to the mere fact that this event happened. Whilst it's important that we understand the deeper meanings of passages, we need to be careful not to overlook the simple fact of them actually occurring. The Gospels are more than just collections of Jesus' teaching and miracles woven into a narrative. They are also, and perhaps more importantly, records of the life and the living of Jesus. They not only record God's invitation to us to experience life in all its fullness, but they show us how God lived life. And today we see that God went to a party, and it seems that Jesus did not feel out of place there. This might seem a really obvious observation for me to make, but it's one that I think some Christian subcultures have too often missed, or worse, have attempted to explain away as if they believe that it would have been better for him to be in the temple teaching rather than wasting time at a party. The image of the Christian life they project and defend is one of great seriousness, one where there's no time for joking or dancing or frivolity or laughter or games or enjoyment or pranks or pleasure, a life of discipline and self-denial and formal clothing without any bright colours, of piety, reverence and prayer, dominated by submission to the imagined biblical injunction of "thou shalt not do anything fun." I remember once when I was young, when a particular member of a congregation stood up in a service to testify to the deep inner joy that she'd found in following Jesus, at which point my sister leaned over to me and whispered, in a voice that I think came out quite a bit louder than she expected, that perhaps the lady could tell her face that it was meant to be joyful. These people seem to be so desperate to maintain their notion that the Christian life is one of withdrawing from the evils of the world, that when faced with the idea of God going to a party, or indeed any other occasion in the gospel where they see Jesus doing the sorts of things that they condemn, they find an imagined reasoning to excuse his participation in what they denounce. And so, for example, they suggest that maybe he was dragged there by his mother, or that he was there to convince the revellers of their sinfulness, or to diffuse his influence and doctrine, or even that he was only there in order to perform the miracle that would have a spiritual meaning. Yet none of this has any justification in the Bible. Perhaps they forget the shout of the angels above the Bethlehem hillside.
Joy to the world, the Lord is come.
Jesus dined with Pharisees and with publicans with an impartial sociability. He doesn't seem to refuse invitations to partake hospitality from whatever quarter they might come. Indeed, it was a complaint brought against him by the religious elite that he was gluttonous and a wine-bibber and a friend of publicans and sinners. Dean Vaughan said,
Christ came not to take a few out of the world, but to transform the world itself.
And so he goes to a party. Contrary to the view that believes people of faith should retreat from the world, Christ's presence did not interfere with the party. He didn't turn over the tables in anger or disgust, as he later would in the temple courtyard. There was no look on his face that chilled the company. He wasn't there to demand that the music be turned down. No one expressed the wish that Jesus had stayed at home. Jesus doesn't keep his disciples away from the merriment, nor does he call those in the celebration to leave it behind and join him elsewhere in secluded contemplation, but rather he goes into the party and even adds to the festivity by giving to his friends what was not an absolute necessity, but an enjoyment, a luxury. Far from condemning the happiness, he enhances it and sanctifies it with his presence. This party is not a godless place. It's a place replete with God's presence. The place of joy is the place where God may be found. The wedding feast would have been a wretched failure had he stayed away. And religion is misunderstood if it's supposed to lessen the happiness of life. The biblical description of life begins in the bounty of Eden and ends with a feast in heaven, and for the in-between times, Jesus offers to us life in abundance, life in all its fullness. The guest could have drunk water, but Jesus offers more, giving the very best. And this, says John, is the first glimpse of Jesus' glory. He gives us better gifts than we deserve, better even than we desire, more than we ask for, think of, or even imagine. He gives his friends abundance, more than enough for the occasion. There was a supply for future need, and in doing so he revealed the liberality of his heart. Do Christians, like Kevin the teenager, undergo a transformation at the moment of their conversion, where all the joy is extracted from their life? In some quarters it might seem that religion says yes, but when we look to the founder of our faith, the answer is no. Never accept a form of religion which makes people gloomy and morose. The people who would shut all the sunshine out of life have not read the gospel of Jesus right, because Jesus went to a party.